now you're all dressed up, of course, and hailing cabs out of your door. On 14th Street, I feel my head between my knees, and orange swilling through the cheese, and orange swilling through the cheese.
Welcome to the 3% Podcast, the bi-weekly podcast from Open Letter and 3%. This is Chad from Open Letter, and I'm joined as always by Tom from Riff Raff.
Hello. I'm very proud of us for keeping to this bi-weekly thing.
Even we have no topics. We have nothing to talk about. We're here recording for you, to entertain you out there, listener, to give you great information about publishing and books and book selling and international literature and whatever else comes to mind. We're all just here to just have a little fun and entertain you and give you something to listen to as you drive to work.
Right. Yes. We won't get into arguments about, highly academic things or anything like that.
Nope. No academic arguments whatsoever. So I was in your not, I was gonna say hometown, but hometown's wrong. I was in your old stomping grounds this past weekend for a day in Columbus, Ohio.
That is right. My very, very long time ago stomping grounds. It's funny, I hadn't been back there for 20 years until I was there like 6 months ago. So
wow.
Yeah, it looks very different from when I was there. There are some neighborhoods that are the same, but yeah, for the most part, everything near Ohio State is completely changed.
I didn't even get that. I didn't get to go to any part of that. I'm still Columbus is still like a mystery to me because I've been through to a number of times, but only to stay overnight on the way back from somewhere, or like this, or I drove down on Friday, had dinner, went to bed, went to the book fair at Ace of Cups on I'll explain that as the Flyover Fest at Ace of Cups on High Street, and then drove home. So I didn't go. I still have not seen any part of Columbus. You
were, by the way, about a half mile away from Ohio State's campus.
That's what I thought, because there's I knew that it was close by, but I didn't have a chance to go explore. The Flyover Fest, for anyone who doesn't know, is organized by $2 Radio, and it is a 4-day festival of music, film, and books in Columbus. And they have, as part of it, a book fair day on Saturday, where from 11 till 4 at this punk club / bar, there's 22 different representatives. It might not have been 22. I think 22 were listed, but there were 16, 17 publishers, a record store, a comic book store. They were all selling books to the public. It was free of charge to come. You could come hang out, buy stuff. And we sold a decent amount of books and had some people come and talk about, they knew some of the titles. They were well informed. It was very nice. It was nice to be in the bar with good barbecue and beer for the book fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely want to go next year, representing New Directions. I think it'll be interesting. I love going to those kind of things where it's inside and sort of, I don't know, it seems more intimate than the Brooklyn Book Festival sort of thing, where it's just a massive, crowded outdoor sort of you're squinting in the sun or, getting the wind smacked you in the face kind of thing. And beer always helps.
Yeah, the beer does make a difference. But yeah, it was really cool. It was great. I love Eric too from $2 Radio. It's always fun to hang out and talk to him for a bit.
Yeah, he's great. He's doing good things.
I wish I'd gotten to their store, but they closed early that day because of the festival, so it really didn't work. And it wasn't open until we were there, and then it closed before we left. So that sucked. And I just had to come home because I had other things going on Sunday. So it was too short. Next year we'll go for a couple days, and you can show me your favorite bar that is apparently some really good dive bar.
Yeah, it's on the very fringe of Ohio State's campus. It's not on the campus, but it's the neighborhood where students and everything live, called the Outer Inn. Where when I saw Eric I think it was there in November, I asked him if he had ever been. He's like, honestly, I just went for the first time last week. I was like, dude, you've lived here how long? It's just a famous sort of, older college kids sort of go there.
Yeah. So I'll fit right in.
Yes. Yeah.
As long as there's as long as it's very divey, that's usually what I go for.
It is very divey. Yes. It's one of the few, everything on the north side of campus is sort of held off the refurbishment that everything else has been going through over the last, 10 years, in terms of the bars and everything and restaurants, everything up there, because it relies so heavily on football weekends.
Yeah.
They're all doing great business and they don't need to sell out to some corporate sort of chain bullshit. So they get to keep their, local flavor kind of thing.
That's awesome. That's a way to do
So,
it.
I know you have a topic you want to spring on me, but I would like to spring one on you really quick.
Okay.
Because I think it's something that has been in the ether with your books since, I don't want to, let's see, I'm going to try to guess here. Maybe since November, December, when you would have been designing books that are coming out around this time. But you guys did a little bit of like repackaging the cover designs and that sort of thing. And like, there's also another element, the translators not being so heavily featured on covers and things like that. I wonder if you could talk about that, or
Yeah.
people who are aware of it, but maybe don't understand all the reasoning behind it.
It's funny. Let me see if I can find. There's one person who's emailed me about this, and I wrote them a very, very, very long response that I'm going to pull up just in case I want to remember any part of this. So we've had covers the same for a long time. They're initially designed back in like 2008. Is that right? 2007 by a guy, Milan Boschak, came up with the first 10 or 12 covers. I think first 12 or maybe even 14. And he kind of laid out like a sort of set of principles for like what the general look would be so that they could kind of fit together without being exactly repetitious. So like if New York Review of Books has this, or Europa editions or Archipelago have the same, they have a really strict set of rules that they follow in which their books all look like a series. We didn't want to go that far with these, but wanted them to at least kind of match together. And so it was like no photographs, sort of like bright color, modern style, or like mod style, like that sort of vibe. And it's evolved over the years a little bit, but we did have for a long time one particular person working on the vast majority of them, which is good for keeping things sort of consistent. Bad because it's hard to do that many covers in a row, and difficult to make them seem unique or good or worthwhile in the end. So some of the covers I do like from the past X number of years, but there are a number that I'm like, just they're not that great. Everything was sort of not as good as it could be. And they'd been recommended to us by a number of people to change the entire look, which I wasn't entirely on board with, because I feel like that would be like a weird, like sudden swerve, but that there would be things that we could do to improve them. And so initially, this is maybe a little bit too much detail, but I think it might be worth it. And I hope it doesn't come off as anything other than like factual. But like one idea was to help with the person who had been designing all the covers, to help and make it easier for them by providing new sets of rules that would eliminate some of the stumbling blocks that they were having. So for a while, a lot of the book covers have this tendency to use the text that's on the cover as the design elements, and that there's no real design going on. It's just weird ways of including the author's name and the title and the translator's name and the blurb, so that it all like kind of it's designed around the text instead of being an image that resonates for the book. And that was becoming a real big problem. So when Anthony came and started really helping take over the book cover design, the first one that he did was Flowers of Mold. And this is the first one of those ones that you're talking about. But we had it at Winter Institute in January, and it was as a galley, and it was exactly the same as the cover is now. And he designed this and does not have it just has Stories, Flowers of Mold, and Ha Seong Nan, which, fun story, we initially had that as Song Nan Ha, since Ha is the family name. And they suggested that we leave it as it should be, as it is in Korean. And now every single store that I've been in has this filed under S for Song Nan, which is wrong. Which I figured would happen, but so be it. Hopefully people can find it. Anyways, we moved all the blurbs. We have blurbs from Susan Choi, from Brian Evanson, from Brian Wood, from Nazanin Hozar and Charles Montgomery, and we moved the Susan Choi one to the back and the Brian Evanson one, and put the others all inside, so that the front cover was as clean as could be, with the idea that the image would be the thing that would resonate most, and that this is the part that we wanted to emphasize. And I started talking about this more and more with Declan when we were together at MLA, and we looked through all the old New Directions covers versus the new ones, and there's been like a shift in, I think, everyone's aesthetic over the past like 7-8 years, in which a lot of covers that are very popular tend to be a lot cleaner. There's a simplicity to them. The translator's name isn't always on them. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I have a list of them here that don't. including all the Europa ones. Enrique Villamatas, the one that's translated by, and the Vampire and Love and Other Stories doesn't have Margaret Jill Costa on the front. The Uwe Janssen books have the translator on the back. The article 353 by Tanguy Vial, the translators, I don't even know if they're in there. They're on the copyright page, or on the title page in the book, but not on the back cover even. So there's like a ton of people that are doing this sort of thing. And so trying to learn from them, we went for an aesthetic that's a lot simpler. So the ones that have this so far that you would have seen are Flowers of Mold, Spiritual Choreographies, which comes out this month, History of Mess, which comes out in July, and then Translator's Bride, which is the most unique one, in that the translator was the author, so it would be weird to put that anywhere other than on the back where it says translated from the Portuguese by the author. And in talking about this, I know that some translators are like, why aren't our names on the front cover, blah, blah, blah. We are not hiding the fact that these books are translated. They're all cleanly on the back and clearly designated in bold. They're everywhere on their metadata. There's so many presses that don't include the name of the translator in their metadata, which is most infuriating to me because I have to try and enter all this stuff into the translation database, and I have to go research and find look inside on Amazon to figure out who the translator is. So we're not doing any of that. We're simply trying to do something that will allow these books to appeal to as many readers as possible, and that we will then be able to do more for translation by not shoehorning ourselves. And it has become a thing. I'm a little touchy about it in a way because there's so many presses that don't include the translator's name, and nobody gives a shit about them. They might say something about it at Alta or whatever, but if we do anything, it's this huge ordeal of people sending messages or why isn't the translator's name? These books seem to be lacking the translator's name on the front cover, and it's yeah, so are all Europas, but we don't exist to help you that way. We do exist to help translators, and we are doing what we can to help translators, but we also need to be able to do the best that we can by these books. And if this little thing of switching to the back is part of that, and the books sell better, and Flowers of Mold is selling extraordinarily well compared to other books that we've done recently, if this is part of it, then I think in the end it's a net gain. And we are really not intending to in any way dismiss the importance of the translator. We have it in every spot that we can, except for on the back instead of on the front, the same way that most New Directions books are.
I have a couple of responses. One, I totally agree that this sort of aesthetic is what seems to work, especially, I will say, among readers of the kind of books you publish. Yeah. Right? There's another aesthetic that I think has gotten more popular for I don't know what the term is, more popular but still literary novels. I'm thinking Little Fires Everywhere, for example.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a very busy, colorful sort of cover, right? Yep. And that has been copied and used by a lot of, Riverhead and Knopf and publishers in that, sort of realm do use that color palette and that sort of busy design, large font sort of thing. Yeah. At the same time, there's no blurbs on the cover. It's just author's name, cover, and what they consider a very striking image.
Yeah.
And that works for them, right? For books like yours, and I don't mean just translations, I mean things that are literary and sort of offbeat, even slightly, it does tend to be the more sort of singular object, sort of striking image with a sort of minimal amount of text on the cover itself that seems to resonate with people and sort of draw them in. And for us, we still have this Flowers of Mold on the table, so we have not misshelved it yet. So only because it's still on the table, and clearly those aren't in alphabetical order or anything.
Yeah.
But it's been moving pretty steadily, and Emma read it and liked it and recommends it. But there's also it just draws people in because we have a lot of covers from a lot of presses that are doing a very similar sort of thing, and I think. I always hate when I get 6 black covers in a row, and it's fuck, I have to put all these next to each other. And I'm glad that people, on the other hand, white covers are the worst thing in the world. But, your black cover with the flower and everything, it works. It really, really works. And this is all to say, I think you guys made some smart decisions in doing this and deciding that this pared down aesthetic works. And I also agree with you that, being able to support translators is part of your mission, and that if this sells more books and allows you to pay better and to do more work and all those sorts of things, that it's a net positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I think is the most important thing. And it's also, I feel like you sort of get unfairly sometimes put in this position where you are sort of held up as like the most translator friendly and supportive publisher, wherein like your mission, if you will, is not necessarily to just support translators. You're also trying to support the authors and the books they write, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
it's two pronged here. And what you're trying to share with American readers are the books, right? And the writers. You're trying to bring their writing into English because you feel like it's important. That requires a translator, and of course you try to support them in that process, but it is still fundamentally you're there to bring the work into English. And that should be what is showcased front and center, and then just like 1A is the translator. And I think it's fine to do what you're doing. So,
Okay. Well, thank you.
I mean, I feel like people are still going to argue with us, and that's just the way it goes.
I know, and yep. It's a thing, but like I think over time it would not seem like that big of a deal. Hopefully,
I agree. Yes,
and that like the books when they get them and they're like, wow, this is really pretty, or I really like this, like then it will be less something too. But yeah, it was a little stressful. I was waiting for a while because those covers have been out for some time before anyone really pointed it out. And the new ones that are on our website that you might not have seen yet because the catalog is still being printed are like The Incompletes by Shafak and the Rilke Sonnets to Orpheus and Garden by the Sea by Rhoda are really striking. And I think they're really great, and they're doing something very similar. But we are working with a lot of freelancers now. So we have like multiple people working on different books and trying to fit into something that sort of still comes together in a way, but maybe is like a little bit more varied than it has been over the past like 5 years.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, there's a lot of them. I'm really excited about some of the ones that are coming out too. I really like the cover for the Incompletes. That's one that Anthony did last minute, and it's really cool. And it's another black one for you, but it looks sharp. It's got a lot of good color on it.
Good.
So
yeah, don't do all black. You know?
No, we're doing the ones I was looking at when you said that. So it's black, white, blue, black, orange, a really crazy blue, white, but it's a hardcover. Then gray, blue, and then white. So there's a bit of a mix, but the white ones are tough, I know, but we do put on the coating so that they don't smudge very easily.
Yes. Yeah, the coating helps. I'm thinking more of like, who does this? Wakefield sometimes does like the uncoated stock, I think.
Yeah.
And it's really annoying when it's white because you have to like try to erase it, and it's white covers are just bad. They're just bad.
I know. The ones that we have I like because they really stand out. The Sonnets to Orpheus one is very cool for like a Rilke book. It's also going to be gift size. So we're doing it like 4.5. Is it 4.5 by 7? I think that's right. So it's like small, very small, and hardcover, and bilingual poetry edition. So it's coming out in December, just in time for like everyone to buy their nephew a Rilke book.
Right. We will definitely have a stack of those because it'll sell, especially the bilingual. People like that stuff.
Yep, and it looks slick. So, okay, so you want So I've had to write a bunch of shit recently, like so many things. I'm feeling very overwhelmed by like life at this moment, and work, like very overwhelmed. But I've had to write a ton of stuff, including very cool the New York Vulture, vulture.com, the New York online culture thing, did 3 articles on translation for Penworld Voices, and I got to do one of them on will translated fiction ever really break through, that talked a little bit about sales and like various other stuff about translations, and it was fun to write. And then they did one on like 15 books that people should read from the past 15 years they're translated, and then they interviewed who was it that the interview was from? Oh, I can't remember. They interviewed Samantha Schweblin, that's right, as like another thing to sort of pimp translations during this particular week. All very cool. And all of this then ends up leading to this long article that I'm writing for this Cambridge anthology that's like 6,000 words, like 25 pages. And I've been working on it for a while, and I'm basically almost done. I've written the the draft of it and I need to fix some stuff up. But in doing so, I started thinking about how I've always gotten irritated about recently, especially about everyone focusing on the 3% problem, which granted, I started, it was a thing. It was very important at a time. And now it's like maybe taken over the narrative to a degree that I don't think it's necessary. And I think we should focus more on something other than just the production side of things. And I started thinking as a thought experiment one day, like what would happen if all of a sudden there wasn't a 3% problem? Let's say that all of a sudden all the books doubled. All the number of translations just doubled one year, and then they doubled again. So let's say that all of a sudden 12% of all books that were being published in the US were translations. Would this be actually a really good thing, or could this potentially be very harmful? Not harmful, but like it could be not the best thing. Let me try and explain and see what your thought is on this. So when I was thinking, like when they do these studies on like that translations sell more than they are produced. So like the whole statistical concept is that if 5% of the books published are translations, they should account for 5% of the sales. If they account for more than that, in which in the UK they apparently account for like 6.5% of the sales, that means that on average they're selling better than the average book that's not written in translation. And that sounds great, except for the fact that it's possible that there's just too many books that aren't translated. So there's such a vast number of them that are zeros or very, very low numbers. And then the handful that do extraordinarily well, and that middle section is sort of pushed down. And I wonder what the right number is for translations. Like if we had 2,000 translated works of fiction and poetry coming out next year, would they start selling really poorly? Would a vast number of them sell so poorly that they would be unaffordable because of the cost? Would translators be able to then charge astronomical sums because they would be so in demand, because there would be so few translators who are capable of being really, really good at that point? If you need that much work, half of the translators will be average, and the ones who are extraordinary could charge a significant amount of money, it seems. But that could backfire because then there wouldn't be any sales because no one's buying these books because there's too many of them. And I just wonder, maybe focusing on the production side is wrong for a secondary reason, and that there would be some sort of odd side effects that we're not aware of if we suddenly jacked up the number of translations overnight.
Well, that depends on if that means you're decreasing the number of English language.
I'm saying they stay the same. The number of English stays the same. You just double the translations twice. Make it four times the number that there are now.
Well, okay. Here's the thing. I think the number of books sold on any given year stays pretty much the same.
Yes.
Right? And that's, barring your, whatever, Harry Potter doesn't exist anymore, but 50 Shades of Grey sort of phenom sort of thing, where people who don't normally read will buy that, right? Yeah. Taking those out, the number of books people buy per year sort of stays the same. So you're just going to spread the sales out among more books, and they're all going to perform worse. And then all of the people who publish these things are going to say, well, that sucked. and
That's exactly what they'll say.
They're going to be like, wow, we really thought doing more of this would really help out. And it turns out you're just going to cannibalize your own sales, right?
Isn't that weird? I guess that maybe I'm just too fascinated by this idea of these numbers, and it's the last part of this article of maybe 3% isn't a problem. Maybe that's not a problem. Maybe it should be 5%, or maybe there's a better number. Maybe there's 1,000. I don't know what ideal would be. I don't know what the ideal market would be, but I don't think it's unlimited. I think that there is some sort of natural confining that everyone seems to be doing okay with the books that are coming out now. And sure, there could be more, but how many more before it becomes cannibalizing its own sales and causes some other weird sets of problems for the presses that are trying to do this, and for the people who are working in the industry, and for booksellers, and for everyone else. Because most likely what happens when you have too much of something, when there's surplus, there is a surplus of books written in English, is that you have the very small percentage that do extraordinarily well and the vast number don't. It's like the power law. Everyone crowds around one thing. Yes. And that just is that's just going to happen. That's how markets work. So if we had too many translations, we'd get a really dense crowding at the top, and then a lot of things that would not be there. And you can see this with like, this isn't to talk ill of anyone again, but like when Delkey went to do a ton of books and got all the funding from the different countries and went from doing like 20 books a year to like 45 or 50, a lot of those books just didn't make it out of there because there were too many.
Right. It's interesting. Well, okay. On some level, doing translations is cheaper than doing English language
I put that in this article too.
Right? Because the rights are generally like very cheap.
Right.
And I mean, you have to pay the translator, but there's a cap, right? Like if it's a super long book, like it's not going to cost, it's very rare that it costs even half of what an English language author gets on an advance from even like the smallest of the major houses, right?
What numbers would you put on this? Because I was doing this the other night and I was using numbers that I was half inventing, half researching. But what number would you put on these things? Like what would be a normal advance for like a fiction book? For
a major publisher?
Yeah, major publisher.
I mean, I'd say the average is probably 50,000.
That's the exact number that I was using.
There's some that get a lot more, and there's some that get not a lot less, but less. And so it does, like $25,000 advances are not unheard of for like a paperback original from Penguin or Picador or something like that.
Yep.
H&H or whatever.
So then I was saying that you could pay even $15,000 for the rights to the book, the international work, and then pay $25,000 to the translator, and you're still under that amount.
And let's be clear, most rights are like $5,000,
$3,000. So, yeah.
So I mean, to get to $25,000 is even like a struggle on most translations. So yeah, it's cheaper, which means all of this is to say that like the scale of success is sort of lessened because you don't have to sell 1 million copies to sort of justify, the investment. But will publishers be okay with that?
But see, this is okay. So this is where I think that something's not right. Because if these articles, if we truly believe the narrative that these are cheaper and they sell better than the English analogs, the books written in English, then anyone with half a brain doing like accounting at a big publisher would be like, we need to invest in this because even if it's not selling 1 million copies, we're making a higher profit per book because it's cheaper and they're selling slightly better than their counterparts. But someone would figure that out. And maybe HarperCollins did with this Harper Via thing, but I kind of feel like they don't. I feel like there's something else that's amiss and that the sales aren't better for the most part, that they're far worse, but we have those 1 or 2 successes that offset and make this look good. Like in the Guardian article of like, this is the one I keep citing, where they're like 6.5% of the sales are translations, that's outshooting this thing. That's really probably just Ferrante. And that's maybe that's it. And a man named Ove or whatever it is, a man called Ove, whatever, like those, like 2 or 3 books like that, and that the vast number aren't. Because if they were, as a whole, the industry would have changed. And
it hasn't.
And it hasn't. It's been, it incrementally has. The excitement around it has. And I wonder if that's not the better path forward. This is kind of what our New York Rights Fair panel at the end of the month is about, and it's something we've talked about on here a million times, is that the path forward isn't to try and produce more books, it's to generate more excitement among readers and more of a desire for these books than it is to like just pump them out.
Right. And that's generally, we've been talking about that for years. It's not necessarily, doing more, flooding the market, making them like a thing that's on every street corner and every bookstore and every supermarket and whatever. It's overcoming readers' sort of general biases against translations and getting them excited about things from abroad and things from other languages in a way that happens among a certain segment of readers, but that's sort of hasn't broken out of that little niche sort of market. And at least not with any like Ferrante, of course, sold to lots of people who probably that's the only translation they'll read this year, right? Yeah. How do you translate interest in Ferrante into interest in translations writ large, right? And I don't know the answer to that. If anyone does, they'll make a lot of money. But it's a fundamental problem that people are drawn to individual books, not necessarily translations, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you generate a sort of loyalty and an interest in foreign, language books translated into English beyond the niche market that it is? And I don't know. I certainly don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I just think that it would be cool too to think this through as like from the perspective of a translator. So like if you had endless demand for your work, because there's now going to be 2,400 translations published in 2020, and so you as a translator, like literally you and Emma as translators, were like constantly in demand. Like you could do as many jobs as you wanted to because people need translators now, and there's only a certain number of them. Granted, there's a lot, and there's a lot of people capable of becoming translators or capable of translating, but there's also a demand for people who already have some experience and that you can trust in. What's the maximum number of books or pages you think you could do in a year?
I mean, it's hard.
Also, that book that you guys did is fucking long.
Yes, it is.
I saw it. It's also oversized in that weird way. I saw it at Albertine last week.
Yeah. I mean, I think if like literally we were doing nothing else,
okay,
and I'm talking like separately here.
Yeah.
If Emma and I didn't have the bookstore and we both were just translating at a desk all day, every day, I think I could maybe crank out one a month.
Okay, so 12 books.
Yeah.
What size are you thinking? Like 300 pages?
Yeah, let's say 300, 250 pages, somewhere in that range. I think it could be done because there's a lot of like revising, of course, right? Like you don't just turn it in and never have to work on it again. So like you'd be working on more than one at all times, I think.
Yeah, I think so too, for sure.
So like you do one, it would go off to the editor, and a month later you'd get comments and whatever. It's a cycle. 15, maybe 12, 15, somewhere in that range. It would be challenging to do more than that, I think.
Man, and if you got paid like $6,000 for each one of those, that would be like $78,000.
Right, untaxed. Comes edge.
Yeah, that part comes at the end, and that part sucks. that part's not fun.
Yeah, so I don't know personally. I don't know that I would like that. I think Emma would probably like that, but.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, I can imagine if you did that full time. That's something that would be a doable career. So okay, so if there were 12, if there are 2,000 books coming out, well, let's say 2,400 because that's divisible by 12, and there would be 200 translators doing 12 books a year and earning a very livable wage.
Sure,
that seems fucking insane.
Right.
I want to envision a world in which there's like 200 translators are just like cranking away, and that's all they have to do.
That would be great. I mean, Margaret
does.
Right? But she does like 6 long, big books a year, right?
Yeah, she usually sometimes she has someone help her with some of them, but like not all that frequently. A lot of them are just her, and they tend to be long.
Yeah. And she's in demand. I mean, she
doesn't have to ask for jobs.
Right. Yes, and she probably gets paid pretty well, I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she also lives in a country where the cost of living is slightly lower than here, so.
She lives out in Leicester.
Yeah. She does? I thought she lived in Spain. Anyway.
No, she lives in Leicester. She was which is, I don't know how cheap that is, but I can't imagine that it's London. Like it's right. It's definitely not that.
Yeah. It's, if your point was to like say like, even if we were doing this many translations per year and everyone was able to do it full time, it's still not that much. You're right. Yeah.
I think it's not that much, but it's also like, I think that if we did that, if there were those 2,400 books, I think that there would be a lot of them that would just fail. And I don't know if that's good.
Right.
I feel like if we think translations are valuable for the process of reading them and not just that they exist and they're on a shelf somewhere and then they go away, like that's not that there's something more than just adding to the ongoing library of written words. If there's something more to it than that, then I think getting too many translations is a potential problem.
Well, of course, I think so too. And I mean, we've talked about this before that like books should exist for cultural value, but like, yeah, you still want people to read them.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just enough that it exists and people could access it if they want to. There is, a desire for someone to put it in someone else's hands and have it be read. And when you have so many of them competing with each other, if we're going to use terms like that, then yeah, I mean, some are going to lose out, and you're spreading the wealth a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And failure for a small press like Transit, for example, can spell doom.
Yep.
I mean, that's,
Like if the average sales went down by like 300, that would be enough to
exactly.
bankrupt people. I think that's the thing, that it's an extremely fragile ecosystem. And like the way that we've always talked about it for so long, a lot of like, especially among translators, is like, we need to, it needs to be 4%, it needs to be 5%. This like more books. We need more funding, more books, so that we can do more jobs, that we can have more of a career. And all that's true. But I wonder still, like, if that were to instantly happen, like some of these presses wouldn't be around. And then I don't know how this market rectifies itself. Like I think there's other forces at play.
Yes, of course. This is not unlike the way, independent bookstores function, right? I mean, we came and opened our store here because we didn't want to do it in Brooklyn, because I would just be cannibalizing other bookstores that I liked sales.
Yeah.
Right? Like we would just be sharing those. It's not like suddenly there would be a whole new demographic of people who would come to my store who weren't shopping at other stores a mile away. Like I would just steal some of their customers. And that's why we came to Providence. And of course there's other bookstores here, but we're doing something different than those other bookstores. So I don't feel like I'm stealing their customers, right?
Yeah.
And there is a certain sort of, rising tide lifts all boats in terms of like literature. Absolutely. And like, it's good for us to get some publicity and get customers in the store who like maybe hadn't bought a book in a while, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that'll get them to shop at the other bookstores nearby, but it's because we're doing something different from the other stores that we can like exist side by side. If another store just like Riff Raff opened up down the street, I'd be fucking furious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're both going to fail.
Yeah, that's very true. There's this old information from, I don't know if it's changed over time, but it's pretty old now. But Barnes and Noble found that when they closed a store or open a store, they didn't cannibalize their own sales, because there was like, it was almost like I imagine like Sim City, like the old Sim City game where you put down like a restaurant or whatever, and a new little bit of ants being people, like go to the location, that new thing, that they found that no matter what they did, like if they put like the stores not that far away, it would just be different groups of people, that people weren't buying books, didn't like, if they closed the store, they didn't go like, oh, I'll go find the other Barnes & Noble. The vast majority of them were just like, well, that's no longer a thing I do.
Right. Yeah. They just either they buy them online or they buy them at the fucking Target or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
They don't go seek out the other Barnes and Noble. You're right.
Super weird to think about, but it's a thing. Yeah, this whole idea too came from to give credit where credit is due, from Sam Miller on Effectively Wild, was like talking about the way to add joy to baseball would be to double the number of teams overnight, like just expand to 60, and it would solve like all sorts of random problems that baseball has. And I think that would be amazing. And that's why I started thinking about it with translations. I was like, wait, it would be maybe not great. It would be great for someone who's into it like I am and like a lot of more books to read, but yeah, it might backfire pretty quickly.
Right. It would be good for all the translators, that's for sure.
We think
and the people selling the rights, and
like a year.
On the work side of it, it would be good, right? There's more work getting the books to market. Yeah, on your side, I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure either. Like, I'm going to advocate for 3% being a solution. No, that sounds real bad. Don't say that. That's the wrong thing. But like that yeah, there's something, there's a metered growth that I think is appropriate. God, there's something else I was just going to tell you and I forgot what it is. It doesn't matter. Whatever it was, it'll come back. Have you been reading anything that you really like recently?
Did I tell you this? So I picked up, I had a galley since Emma picked it up for me at Winter Institute, of the Oral History of Joy Division.
Oh.
This Searing Light in the Sun and Everything Else.
Wow.
And I I thought, okay, I'm not going to bother reading this galley. I'll read it when I have free time because this is a book that's going to sell itself, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing I need to add to this beautiful book that exists and is like perfect for our store and all of that sort of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, but one Sunday afternoon 2 weeks ago, I was like, I'm bored with what I'm reading, so I'm going to give it a try. Holy fuck, it's so good.
Yeah.
That I read like 100 pages and was like, I feel bad. I need to read like things that are actually coming out. Like, this is. So I had to put it down, but man, it's really, really good. Like, if you care about Joy Division in any way and you think you've read everything there is to read about them and you've seen the movies and whatever, I promise you it's still incredibly fascinating and interesting to read these people talk about what happened leading up to and then, during that weird fucking crazy time in Manchester.
Yeah.
But from the people themselves who were a part of it. Including Ian Curtis, who had given some interviews in '75 to sort of speak to these things as well. So yeah, I've been reading that, and then I'm going to butcher the title, so let me look up. What have you been reading?
There's a book that I'm very excited about that I might be able to sell you on through one thing, but one thing alone. And this goes against, as Anthony and Kai pointed out, this goes against most of my general statements, but for this contest that I'm reading these books for, I read Bred from the Eyes of a Wolf by Kim Kyung Ju, translated by Jake Levine. And they refer to it as a poem on 2 occasions at least, but it's a play. It's set up like a play with a mom, a son, a woman, and some police officers. And it's set way in like a weird future, in which it's never really clearly explained, but it's a weird future in which like every sort of possible dystopian thing has taken place. Like everything's gone wrong, everything's wrong. And people are like no longer people, they're like wolf people hybrids. So the wolves part is the part that I think will appeal to you. and it's almost like a reverse Oedipal play, but it's fucking wild. Like I read this on the train, I was like, I love everything about this. Like just random lines are really funny. It's like a weird idea about like animals and what makes an animal versus a human. And I can't really even describe it. It's like a book that to be experienced, but I absolutely loved it. And it's got lots of like vulgarity and like strange, unnerving situations. And like the sun wolf thing has no arms, but he ends up murdering all these people because they get pissed at them because they won't let him like hold their hands with his feet because they're not his hands. And so he ends up murdering all of them, and that sends him to jail and all these other things. But it's a short, fun book that came out from Plays in Verse, which I've never even heard of. Oh, yeah. But I love it.
I love Plays in Verse. We have a couple books of theirs at the store that I really, really like.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We have a book, I think it's Plays in Verse, called Your Healing is Killing Me. I don't know. It's really, really fantastic.
I guess Plays in Verse is from Pittsburgh, too.
Yeah.
So you're like not even like they're in a unique space.
Yeah, they give grants, I think, to like for people to like turn what have been like plays into books, and like, opportunity to get the work out there in a different form. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of just that gets performed. It gets
Your Healing is Killing Me by Virginia Grice.
Grice, yeah. It's really good. It was also like a one-woman show, and she turned it into that book. So I looked up the other book I was reading. I wanted to get the title just right, and when you hear it, you'll understand why. It's called Please Read This Leaflet Carefully. Keep this leaflet. You may need to read it again.
Oh, my gosh.
By Karen Haviland. And this is published by Dotter Press, Dottir.
Oh, yeah.
They're fantastic. They're relatively new, I think, or at least they're new to me. I don't know. Their tagline is Books by Feminists for Everyone. So it's not unlike, oh God, I'm totally blanking on the title, Paradise Rot. It's certainly more lively, and it's, she wrote it in English, even though I think she is like half Norwegian or something, like or Norwegian descent. But there's definitely like a very like precise discussion and analysis of like the body and just being alive and what that all entails and everything like that, and like a normal day-to-day life, just being alive and being of a certain age. It's very fascinating, and the writing is like very like addictive. Like you read it and you're just sucked right in. There's like zero affect or anything like that. It's just very interesting.
That's cool. Yeah, this looks great. They have really pretty looking books too.
We had a stack of it and no one had read it at the store. Like I had the galley and hadn't picked it up yet, and we got the book in like sort of on a surprise. I didn't know when it was coming out. We had like 4 or 5 on the table, and they were gone in 2 days because the cover is just fantastic. And the title, I'm a sucker for a title like that. So
Yeah, that's solid. That's related to that. I'm going to Norway next week for like one of those editorial trips to go through, meet a bunch of publishers and authors and translators and all that. And I think I'm also part of a conversation about contemporary Norwegian writing at the Lillehammer Book Festival. So I'll have to report on how that goes because I've done zero to prepare for it.
I wonder if oh God, I'm going to blank on his name too. Hold on, looking it up. I don't want to get it wrong. So the guy who wrote Silence in the Age of Noise, Erling Kage, Kage. So he's a publisher.
Oh.
I wonder if he'll be there.
I'm sure he will. It's like a huge festival.
He's an explorer, like literally, like goes to the fucking South Pole and things like that, which I didn't know was still a thing.
Awesome.
So he does that, and his day job is like he publishes books. Like he goes into whatever Oslo and publishes books, and then he'll take time off and
Wait, what did you say his name was?
It's Erling, Erling, Kage, Kagge. I'm totally sure I'm mispronouncing that.
There's a different person that we're meeting with a similar name.
Anyway, I'd be very curious to see what he publishes because I have no concept of what that is. And I've read both his books that have been put into English. I liked Silence in the Age of Noise more than I liked the new one called Walking. But they're good. He's a very smart guy, and you can tell he's well read. Like he references a lot of like similar sort of like writers to himself, Valser and things like that. So anyway, we'll enjoy Norway.
I hope so. This is where things go crazy for me. I'm gone all next week, then I'll be in New York, and then I'll be in Bredlow. Like 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks of traveling. So I'm trying to like get everything I need to get done by tomorrow, or by Thursday. It's a little stressful, but we'll get there. We're also tomorrow morning we'll have another 2-month review episode with Schoen's Codex 1962, and tomorrow morning, being Wednesday, will be the announcement of the Best Translated Book Award shortlists.
Cool. Have you seen those?
No idea. Not a clue. I'm so out of it, and that's the way I wanted it. But it makes it kind of interesting.
Yep, I'm very curious. Very curious. So I will be in New York. I don't know when we're gonna podcast again.
We could do it from we should do it that Tuesday, and I'll be on a train, but I could do it when I get home or when I get to the hotel. I mean.
All right. Yeah, that'll work. I don't leave till Wednesday, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think publishers out there trying to extend BEA through Tuesday. There's so many parties I got invited to on Tuesday. Like, are you crazy? Can't go for the whole fucking week.
No, I don't. I'm there because the New York Rights Fair is paying for my hotel those 3 nights, so I'm there for those nights. And my train, so I don't have to. Otherwise, I would just come in for my panel and leave, I think. But,
yeah.
Yep.
All right. Sounds good.
Trying to think if there's some other book I was going to tell you about. One thing I do want to plug is that for the fall, in September, we're going to do, for the 2-month review, we're going to do Duck's Newburyport. You know about this book, right?
Yes.
Big ass Billy Oasis book. So you probably have a galley. That apparently there are 30,000 more words that have been added to that galley.
How is that even possible? Jesus.
I have no idea, but I saw Danny's like, it's longer now. So I don't want to read that galley. I'm going to wait and read the finished thing. But we want to do that as like a really extended 2-month review. And the first one that's by a book written in English, because I know this is a huge book. And like Billy Oasis needs to like do okay by it because it's such a gigantic, 800 and some page book. And I also think it seems very interesting and fun and whatever else. But if anyone's listening and you're looking for something to do this fall, pre-order a copy of Duck's Newburyport by Lucy Ellman from your local bookstore, and it will help. I think it'll be good. It'll be fun.
Cool. You're not doing that till the fall though. When does the book come out?
September. That's why. Yeah. So just wait until it comes out so it's available. But just planning ahead. And I know that for And I don't know that people like we talk about it for podcasts a lot. People say like, oh, you need those ratings to get like people to find your podcast, and all that kind of stuff really helps, and it does. And for publishers, the pre-order stuff helps a lot. So go in to your store, go tell people you want this book, and get it pre-ordered. So when it comes out, it sells.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't make you super nervous, but very cool. Okay, I don't have anything else to add to this, but we'll get it up right away.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay.
One to kiss your neck and one to bring you breakfast, get you out of bed when